What's going on, guys, and welcome back to a, let's call it a Cameraman Ron / The Morning Vibe, because this is going to be one of the very first ones where we do an episode and we break it up between the two channels. We're going to put the first part of this on the Cameraman Ron page, and then the guys are going to have to tune into the Morning Vibe to watch the rest of it. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I am super excited about today's guest. Now, you guys may not recognize her because we've already had our talks about her social media absence. Like she's not really very active on social media, but that's okay. We're going to talk to her about that today. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Rachel Gilliam. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yes, that is right. That's correct.
Okay. And she is with Girl Gone Rogue Fishing Charter. She is a licensed captain out of the Big Bend area. What was the name of the river you said you fished out of?
The Osceola River.
Osceola River. And that's like big city wise. What's that closest to?
We are about 50 miles southeast of Tallahassee.
Okay. So fairly close to the Tallahassee area. So I've been wanting to have a fishing charter on, or a charter captain on, for a little while. And I was telling Rachel when we first got started, I'm not even sure how we became like social media contacts. I'm really not. I don't know if it was just something that maybe through one of the fishing groups or what, but you're originally from Clearwater.
Yes.
And then how long have you been up in the Big Bend area?
Since middle school, so yeah.
So you never chartered out of Clearwater?
Oh,
did
no.
Okay,
Just
okay.
the Big Bend area.
Gotcha. Now, how long have you fished that area?
I've been fishing it for, at least 15 years.
Okay.
Like when I was old enough to, operate a little John boat with a 25 Yamaha on the back. So.
Yeah, and that was probably the greatest thing in the world.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
you could tell me nothing.
Oh, I'm sure. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, one of my favorite things about you do have a Facebook page. We'll have all of her stuff linked down in the description. We'll get to that a little bit later. But one of my favorite things to see on your pictures is your little girl.
Oh,
because
thank you.
you can tell that there's no question this girl's going to grow up to be a sportsman through and through.
I hope so. She loves it now, so I hope she loves it 20 years from now.
I mean, at this point, I've seen some of the fish she's caught, and I mean, it makes me jealous, which you guys know that it doesn't take much to make me. Rachel we were talking about ice fish, and she's like, yeah, they're pulling up fish like this. And I'm like, well, that's what I pull up out here in the bay most of the time. So I'm not feeling too bad about that. But it's really cool to see your little girl. And we're going to get into that a little bit more in a minute. But at what point did you decide that was going to be your living? You were going to be a charter captain, and that's how you were going to make your money.
Well, you want the long version or the short version?
Yeah, the long version.
Okay.
Heck yeah, we want to get to know Rachel today.
Okay.
Before we send people out on a boat with you, we want to get to know Rachel today.
Okay, so I will say that it's been a dream of mine for my entire life. In Clearwater, my dad, he makes cast nets. His dad handed the business down to him, and then my dad did some commercial mullet fishing and crabbing down there. When we moved up here, he kind of retired from everything except for the net, so he continues to do that. But all my memories with him have been on the water, and it was always a dream of mine. But, that went against everything I was ever taught. You get a secure job. So 2015, I got my associates in occupational therapy. I started working as a therapist assistant, and, make a long story short, through the pandemic, right before it became a thing, I was getting my bachelor's degree with the intent to get my master's in occupational therapy and be an evaluating therapist. But I had gotten my captain's license, because it was something I eventually wanted to do. It just wasn't something that was going to happen right now. And I actually ended up getting fired from my job because of the vaccine mandate. So, my head was spinning. I was like, I've not ever been without a job since I was 13 years old. Like, What the heck am I going to do? So, I prayed about it and I thought about it. And obviously I couldn't take too much time. I had to figure something out. And I was like, you know what? Right now is the best time in my life to branch out, start a guide service. I literally don't have anything to lose. And looking back, it has been a blessing, because if they hadn't fired me from my job, I don't think I would have had the courage to go out on my own, leave the security of a 9-to-5 and do what I'm doing now.
And, it's like, if you guys don't take any other testimony from anything we ever do on this podcast, listen to what she just said, because for so many years, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, people were terrified to bet on themselves.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
it's crazy how much easier it becomes to bet on yourself when your hand is forced and you have to.
Oh, yeah.
Because, and that was, if there was anything good that came out of everything that happened in 2020 and the pandemic and all the craziness that ensued for the next, 18 months or whatever it was, I've heard more stories of people that stepped out and chased their dreams during that time frame, because up until that point, you had to make a choice to chase your dreams.
Oh, for
That
sure.
you did. It was gut wrenching. Like you said, it's like you're taught in society, you got to live the 9 to 5 and you have to have a secure job and you have to have a real job. So that's what everybody did. But then when 2020 rolled around, all of a sudden, what was a real job became real blurry,
Oh, yeah.
because all these real jobs were going away because of something completely out of your control.
Yep.
And I've heard more people that were forced to chase their dreams in 2020 than at any other point, I think, in our lifetime. So it's really cool to hear you say that that's when you stepped out and went for it. And it is scary. I mean, Sarah and I have been business owners for 6 or 7 years, and I can't tell you the amount of time that it was literally, she finally put her foot down. I was working like 80, 90 hours a week, and she
Wow.
came home one day and she's like, look, she's like, I will support you in whatever you want to do. She's like, but you have to pick one. She's like, you can't keep trying to do it all. I mean, I was DJing, I was videoing, I was working a full-time job that was very demanding. And she's like, I want you to chase your dreams. She's like, but you can't continue to do this and a full-time job. And she's, you got to pick. You're wearing yourself down. And at that point, we made that decision. Mine was Steve Harvey's The Jump. I don't know if you've ever heard that or not.
No.
He gets it. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but he basically talks about that every successful person you meet in your life, at some point, they had to take a jump. And it's one of those things that God will always open your parachute.
For sure.
He might let you hit the rocks and get skinned
Yeah.
up first, but he will open a parachute for you, because he's never not done that. I listened to that one day when I got home from work. The next day I went to work and gave my 2 weeks notice of my job. And here we are, 9 years later, and we definitely have had our shares of ups and downs, but it's been, mostly good all the way around. So,
And you mentioned Steve Harvey, which I haven't heard of The Jump, but I do listen to Eric Thomas motivation, and one of the things that stuck out the most that he said was you cannot have a plan B. If you're going to chase your dream, you'll always have that fallback plan, and you're not going to go into it wholeheartedly. And me not having, a job to turn to, I didn't have a degree in anything else, I didn't know anything else, and it was like, I'm either going to sink or swim, and I don't have the option to sink because I have a daughter that depends on me, so
exactly.
I have to make it work.
And and there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to, I've never really heard it put that way, but to not have a plan B, because you're right. You have no choice but to be successful,
Yep.
and you work at it. And that's, but when you look back, I promise you, that's going to be one of the turning points, is when you don't have a plan B, and you're like, then you look around and everything's starting to come together, and you're
Yep.
like, holy crap, like this is working. People were booking trips with us, which I do find it kind of ironic that you were an occupational therapist, because technically you're still a therapist. Because a lot of people use fishing as therapy. So I would venture to guess that as a charter captain, you're still doing therapy, and you
Yep.
didn't even realize it, but you're still a therapist out there. You're just a water therapist
Yeah.
now.
And as you said, like, things are starting to come together, and I'm a very new guide. There's so many things that I've learned over the last year, and I see my time spent in healthcare as a people building or a skills set. Learning to deal with people in the public. People in healthcare are not always happy. They're not
Sure.
there because they want to be there. So I've learned to deal with a lot of different personalities, and learning to deal with a lot of curveballs, and it's all adding up, and it's contributing to my success.
And that's awesome. Are you staying pretty busy on the charter side?
I am. So I'm averaging like 2 to 3 trips a week, which in my opinion is good for being a
Yeah.
new guide. I've only been doing it about a year. I got a new boat 6 months ago, so I really have been trying to advertise within the last 6 months, a lot harder than I was before. And it kind of works out because, I'm homeschooling my daughter. So, those extra days that I have off, I
Sure.
can spend time with her. So,
Yeah.
it's going
And
well.
are they FLVS? Is that what you're doing? Florida Virtual School?
No, we're doing the Abeka program.
Oh,
She's
okay.
only in kindergarten.
Oh, okay.
No.
Got you. Oh, that's right. I forget. She's much younger.
Yeah.
So when you see this little girl, though, she's not catching fish like a kindergartner. She's catching fish like a grown woman would normally catch. So did you have any like fishing inspirations coming up besides like your dad? Did you have anybody that like you looked to that was inspiring you to fish?
Oh, for sure. one of my dad's very close friends, J.R. Walker, he's actually a guide out of the Osceola also. He's just been super supportive. I've fished with him. I've gator hunted with him. We spent a lot of time on the water together. And I came to him, when I was trying to make this decision, and I was like, what do you think about this? This is really out of my comfort zone. And it's like tough love that he gave me.
Sure.
He didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. He told me what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And he's just been awesome throughout this process.
Awesome. Good deal. Do you watch any fishing? Because I will tell you guys, and a lot of y'all don't realize this at home. There's sometimes in certain areas, and you can say if it's this the way where you're at. I'm not sure of a lot of content creators. I'm trying to wrap my mind around who all's over in Tallahassee. I know Norm's there. But a lot of times charter guides and content creators don't see eye to eye. I don't know if you realize that or not, but like in our area, a lot of charter guides don't really care for what we do. They think we're kind of cheating the system a little bit because they think we give away spots. But but here's the thing. The places we're fishing, like Fort Pickens, 3 Mile Bridge, these are not hidden spots. I mean, there's more people that fish at Fort Pickens for sharks on a daily basis than anywhere else in the state of Florida. So it's not like, but we get that. Like we get this whole thing of, well, you're showing, our best spot to 20,000 people. And it's like, well, if they come pay you to get on your boat, they're going to go to a spot. They're going to mark that spot. And then the next time they're here with their boat, they're going to go fish that spot. So I may be showing them in a YouTube video, but you're taking them there.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a clash. But do you have any like content creators that you watch regularly on the fishing front?
Honestly, Ron, I hate to say it, but I really don't.
No, it's okay.
I mean, just with the time that I have, I'm either on the water, I'm either doing trips, like fishing, looking for new area, or my time is spent with Audrey. I don't really advertise myself a whole lot on Facebook, which I know is more of a weakness than a strength.
We're gonna work on that as we move through this process here over the next hour. I promise. So.
Yeah. But I also am guilty of not really looking to see what's around me.
Well,
but kind of like nose to the grindstone,
and there is nothing wrong, and there's nothing to apologize about that. And the reason why, and the reason I asked this was because I almost expected you to say no, because I know if I was a charter captain, I would probably not watch fishing videos because that's your job.
Yeah.
I mean, if you work, I used to use the example all the time. If I still worked in a door factory like I did when I was 19 or 20, I'm not going to come home and watch videos about building doors. I don't care how interested I am in it. That's your job. You're not going to come home and watch content. So I was almost expecting you to say no there because if I was a charter, I mean, because like even myself, I love to fish, but I've watched very, very few fishing videos anymore. I have started to gear away from that and watch other different creators outside of the fishing world simply because most of my time is spent fishing now. So if either fishing or weddings, and it's like, so I don't venture into the rabbit hole of fishing videos anymore either. So
okay.
You don't have to feel bad.
I don't feel so bad.
That wasn't a trick question. I promise it wasn't. So goals for 2023. Do you have like a trip goal? Do you have like how many specific species? What's your goals look like for 2023?
So one of my goals actually is the social media aspect, being able to advertise myself a little bit better. As far as species, I don't really have a goal for that. Trip goals, I would like to be booking at least half of the month, 15 to 20 trips a month, as weather allows, of course.
Sure.
And it's more so personal goals, like, just getting out and meeting more people. Like this year, I started fishing the North Florida Gulf Coast Fishing Club tournaments, and not necessarily to prove a point and, win all the tournaments, but I just want to meet more people in the industry. I mean, as I said, I'm constantly like working, fishing. I'm not getting out. I'm not meeting a whole lot of people.
Right.
And I think it's really important to have those connections. So I'm trying to do more of that this year.
There you go. And there's never a time where being in front of people is a bad thing, and it doesn't matter how you're doing it. And I firmly believe that whether you're a content creator like we are or a charter captain, the more you can put yourself in front of people, the more they're going to get to know you. Because let's be honest. I mean, we're not gonna try to sugarcoat anything. You are a female captain in what is a very, very male dominated
Yes.
sport. Now, I would venture to guess that sometimes that's going to benefit you, but that's definitely going to hurt you some. How have you overcame that in the beginning of your career of, people like, well, I don't want to go out with her. She's a female captain. I don't know if that's a good thing. But I mean, all they got to do is look on your social media and it's like the girl catches fish, so it really doesn't matter.
So actually, I've had very positive experiences, and I've heard from other female captains that they have not, but I cannot speak on their behalf. Just the amount of support that I've received has been extremely overwhelming, and I've not had anybody. Every now and then you'll have your Facebook keyboard warrior.
Oh, of
They'll give
course.
a captain's license to anybody, but I honestly don't think that has anything to do with me.
No.
But just the people that know me personally, that have seen me grow up down there, like I was always out there. Like they always saw me around. If I wasn't, on the river, they saw me out there frog gigging, just doing whatever. Like I've always been out there. I've spent my time out there, and I just feel like that's earned me a lot of respect
Sure.
in the industry thus far. And also, I feel like the way that you carry yourself with other people, I'm not ever going to verbally defend myself. I'm just going to let my actions speak louder than my words.
Right. And that's, I mean, when you do what you do, you can easily do that. You don't have to, you don't really have to justify yourself when you're catching fish at the end of the day. Have you ever had like not because you're a girl, but have you ever had like a bad trip where you just were like, I want these people off my boat? And I don't want you to give names, but just like where it was just not a good trip and it wasn't anything you were doing wrong. You just had bad clients. Because let's be honest, there are bad clients. I don't, God love almost everybody that comes on a boat, but I've known enough charter captains that you can be a bad client. Like, and if you think, if you get on the boat and you think it's not, or everybody else's fault and not your fault, you might be a bad client.
To be honest with you, I have not.
You will. Yeah, you will.
I've heard it, and I know it's coming, and I think a lot of it's to do with, we are such a rural area, and I haven't been doing it that long, so I don't have that many years experience. But everybody that I've had on my boat has just been awesome, and it's been a great time. And, there have been a couple of hard days where I'm like about to pull my hair out. I'm like, oh my God, I can't find the fish, this is terrible, because I want everybody to have the best day every time.
Absolutely.
And that's just not the way that fishing works. But most people have been, if we are having a bad day, they're really understanding, it's called fishing for a reason. It's not catching.
Yeah.
But I know it's coming, but it hasn't happened yet. So
and I think, and this is we have a lot of tourists that watch us that come, from all areas and they do fishing. And most of the time they are understanding. And I think the issue, like I've had my personal friends, this is what always happens. They'll come down and I'm as self-admitted, not a very good fisherman. I'm really not. I'm very entertaining for the most part, but I'm not like, I can't go out and like look at the water and be like, yep, that's where the fish are at. It's like, if they're not in the normal spots that I fish, I'm like, oh, guess we're not catching fish today because I don't really know how to go out and find them. But my friends will come down, and especially when we first started doing YouTube, like pretty prominently full time, and I would put together a video where I would catch 10, 15 fish. And my buddies would come down and we'd go out on the water and we'd be fishing like 2.5 hours and we caught one, and they're like, what's going on? Like I saw your video Tuesday and you caught like 20 fish. And I'm like, I was on the water 10 hours. Like, they're like, no, you did it in 20 minutes. I'm like, no, I edited it 20 minutes. I did it over 10 hours.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem. It wasn't done in an hour. So, keep and the reason I said temper your expectations, because Rachel's exactly right. Imagine yourself, and let's say you're from Kentucky or Illinois or wherever it is that you fish. You do not go out and have a banger day every day. So to think that a charter captain, irregardless of how great of a fisherman they are, you are not going to go out and have a banger day every single time out. It's just next to impossible.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's just, so what would you say in the year you've done this, best trip you've had as far as like clients catching the best catch you've had on the boat on a trip one day? Whether it be most fish, biggest fish, however it worked out for you, but one that was like just sticks out and like, man, that was a good charter trip.
I actually have two. They're really so
nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'll take two. Yeah, burn it up.
Two of my most memorable trips were actually some of my very first trips. The first one was a girl that I took out. It was negative low tide, hardly any water, and we were drifting into a creek mouth. And, I gave her top water, and she was just learning how to use it. Never used topwater before, and a 26-inch trout just blows up on it. And I turn around because all I hear is, that head shake. I'm like, oh. So she gets it to the boat, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is a great start to the day. And then we were able to drift into this creek mouth, and she turns around, and she catches a top slot redfish. I mean, it was right at 27 inches. Like, if it had been any bigger, I'd have had to send it back. And then, it wasn't even an hour later, and she lands a flounder. So she
got the inshore slam.
First inshore slam, and it was great. I try to judge clients' capabilities as far as lure fishing. I don't use live bait for myself, when I scout. There's nothing wrong with that. I just, try to explore and love lure fishing. So I try to gauge their experience as to whether, we're going to use bait or use lures. And just for her to have that topwater blow up was just insane. First thing in the morning, as the sun was coming up, it was awesome.
A top slot redfish topwater would be... I don't know that I've ever caught a redfish on topwater.
Well, the trout was on topwater.
Okay. So what?
So the first fish of the day was the trout.
Got
and
you.
then the redfish, she was using soft plastics.
Okay.
But, I mean, it was just a great day all around. And then my second one, I had two guys that they had done some freshwater fishing or whatever, and it was a rough start to the morning. We had been out there an hour, and I was like, I promise when the tide turns around, we'll start catching fish. And they had brought some beverages. So I was like,
Sure.
what the problem is? You're not drinking beer. And sure enough, the guy popped his first beer, and then the other guy hooked up, and it was just on. And, I was getting the treble hooks out of a net. And the guy was like, oh, my God, what's wrong with this? And he, I guess, had been reeling the opposite direction, and the handle came off. So I'm hand lining this overslot trout in, and his buddy's trying to be helpful, and he goes to grab the net. Well, the treble hooks get caught on the outside of the net, and I was like, if we land this fish, it's an act of God. And then after that, it was just fish after fish. We found an oyster bed, and we were able to cast, and they were using jerk baits, and it was a great day.
That's awesome.
I mean, it was one of those days where, when your clients say, I'm tired of catching fish, let's go in, it's a great day.
Yes, when you can hear those words come out of a client mouth, hey, I'm actually worn out from catching so many fish. Let's call this right now. So we actually had a day like that. Stephen Chapman, who's down in the St. Petersburg area, we've been blessed to become really good friends with him, but he's a charter captain there. The first time I've only went on one charter with him. I've fished with him several times now, but it was like that day. Like the first hour was it was god awful.
Awesome.
And then all of a sudden, we rolled onto an oyster bed, and I bet we caught 50 snook that day.
Oh, wow.
And it got to the point where I was just like, dude, I know it's not 4 hours. I know we've only been, I'm like, let's take it to the house. I've got enough for 14 videos right now. My arms are tired. Sarah has outfished me. Let's just go to the house because I'm whooped. But that was probably one of the most epic days of fishing that we've ever had. So that's always a cool experience when you can look at your captain and be like, all right, I'm tired of catching fish. Let's go to the house.
Yep.